Hello and welcome to the Temple of Tomes with your host, Indie Comics Jones. Today is April 6th, 2021, and this is episode 262. Geiger is what we're looking at today. This is a number one coming from Image at $3.99, and we get this really cool, obviously atomic bomb blast or test or something with this person standing in the shadow of it, I guess, or in the blast way. This depiction does not happen. You got the little skull going on there. Really nice depiction. This is a Gary Franks piece of work, or cover, I should say. Very nice. This is something I just picked up today. I picked up 14 comics today. I've already reviewed the final chapter of King in Black number 5, so go back and check that out. I did Swamp Thing number 2. That one got a recommend, actually. And this one is also recommended. It'll be getting the good excavating seal of approval at the end of this video, so stay tuned for that exciting moment. Okay, Geiger. This is a Geoff Johns and Gary Frank creators. Now, last time they did Doomsday Clock, and I must say, this is a whole lot better than Doomsday Clock. I think the scope of it's smaller, and I think that helps out. And they didn't have the ghost of, not the ghost, but the specter of Alan Moore hanging over them on that one. This one comes off really good, in my opinion. So far, really solid. Okay, we've got, like I said, Geoff Johns, Gary Frank. I think Gary Frank did all the interior art because he did two of the covers for this book. Let's see what we got here. Letters is Rob Lay, and the colorist is Brad Anderson. And Mad Ghost, I'm not sure what that is. If it says designer, editor, so I don't know if that's something to do with that or not. I'm not sure what Mad Ghost is. Okay, and what we've got here is it's a post-apocalyptic landscape here out in the desert close to Las Vegas. We've got some guys out there searching the ground. They're looking for supplies. They have come from the city of what's left the city of Las Vegas. Mostly what is left is casinos that are shells, I guess, for people to live in, depending on what tribe or faction they are with. And they go into it a little bit on the appendice on this, but nothing really too much in the story other than introducing the casino Camelot. Okay, so we got a couple guys out in the desert. They're checking for radiation. They start talking about this thing called the glowing man, and you can see here's where one of the missiles actually struck. There's a big crater there, and they're camping out. This is 20 years after the blast, basically, and we've got the people that worked on it down here again, and it talks about who was on different covers as well. Doesn't really say who did the interiors though, so I'm assuming it is Gary Frank on that. Okay, so you got this nice Las Vegas landscape 20 years in the future. Then we go in the past, and they were talking about Tariq. I can't think of what his last name was now. Let's see if they say what his name was. Tariq Geiger. Duh. Okay, Tariq Geiger. This is him 20 years ago. He's in a fallout shelter. They're listening to all these news stories, and they're all bad. And it sounds like all heck is breaking loose. Suddenly they go to emergency broadcast, and he grabs his family, gets them down to the shelter, and as they're going to the shelter, they see the dog still out there barking. He tells them to go in the shelter, I'll go get the dog. And you can see they're launching the warheads off into the distance somewhere. The ones incoming haven't hit yet. So he gets his family into the shelter. He goes, I'll go get the dog. He goes out and gets it. As he's coming back with the dog, he gets shot in the leg by some neighbors. Looks like they're rich neighbors, and they're well armed. And they said, get your family out of there. We're taking over your shelter. So immediately he says, go in the shelter, shut the door. Don't worry about me. You guys have to survive. And the dog is barking at the neighbors, and they shoot the dog, which is getting more and more horrible as things are getting by, and so they're about to shoot him, and suddenly the blast goes off and basically fries those neighbors and fries him slowly, and he becomes what they call the glowing man. He somehow survives the radiation. So Tariq Geiger is still alive. Okay, it's the next morning for these guys 20 years later. They have stumbled upon some of the buildings, the houses. They say, okay, let's look for supplies here. Apparently Las Vegas has run low. They actually have made a deal with the glowing man, what they call the glowing man, I guess 20 years ago, saying they wouldn't bother him or his property, so he could continue to live. Now, the glowing man, this is the shelter that he has built, and so they see that and they're just thinking they've got explosives with them, that they'll just blow it up and steal the explosives. Tariq Geiger, the glowing man, suddenly shows up, and he takes them all on. They want his supplies. Say no way, because they don't want to go back to what they call the prince or the king. I can't remember if it's the prince or the king, and tell them they didn't bring anything back. So he just says, you can stay here and trespass and die, or you could leave. He says, and you can see when he gets very angry, I guess he turns into the glowing man. And so they run off, and just really, really great drawing on this too. Just really exciting stuff. And he goes into his shelter that he's got. I think it's his house, actually. The house that survived the blast, what's left of it. And he's eating cans of beans in there. He's got all these books. He's got, I guess, a couple... it's one dog that's got two heads. I just noticed that. This is a mutated wolf or coyote. And so that's his buddy now. So he's just eating beans, basically, and marking down the days when he can open up the shelter and get his family out. And you see him saying, he's wondering if they're in there. He says, Dad, but we don't really know if they're even still alive. He just assumes they are. And he's held it together after all these years, even though he was highly radiated, obviously. So the guy comes back, and he's talking to I think he's the king now, the child king. And apparently his father, something happened to his father. It's unknown to them what happened to him. So we're going to find out that things like that in the future on these. I really think this is a really nice, compelling novel. He's telling them they got to go back out there. He wants their supplies so he can continue to eat lavishly. Now, I don't know how he got all this fruit and stuff, because they're in the middle of the desert, but apparently he lives very well compared to most of the people. And he throws a tirade. He wants to go with them, and the guy's saying it's too dangerous for you. And he says, no one tells me what to do. I'll do what I'm going to do. And you can see these in this big castle. So I think this is supposed to be like Excalibur, if you're familiar with that casino in Las Vegas, because they show it here in this picture here, a little bit different. And it's Welcome to Fabulous Las Vegas is the sign, and I guess there's a wall around the whole casino. So next month is The King and I, and then we get this nice little travel pamphlet here that kind of points out all the different casinos, and I guess the people that are running these casinos currently, and they haven't really been explained other than the prince a little bit, but they don't know what happened to the king. It even says, what happened to the king. So we'll find out, I think, in future episodes. And then we get this last thing, what's coming up. Reveal the decadent world of Las Vegas crime lords. Witness the desperate lives of those who survive the apocalypse. And then behold what passes for a chew toy in the nuclear wasteland. Geiger issue 2 on sale May 12th. And then we get an ad for Slug and Snipe. It looks kind of interesting. Peter J. Tomasi. That's coming in 2021. No more said than that. I don't know, Mad Ghost is a sub label for Image now. I'm not quite sure. So yeah, This is a total recommend. I want to show you one last thing in here. The bean eating. Okay, he shows a comic book, Junkyard Joe. It's supposed to be like Sad Sack, I believe. And then we get one page of Junkyard Joe back here with kind of a cute question or joke at the end, little punchline, I should say. So, all in all, good, very good for $3.99. This is a recommend. It does qualify for the Good Excavating Seal of Approval, given out only by Indie Comics Jones. So thank you for stopping by and listening to my review. As always, please like, please subscribe, please leave messages or comments. I'm sorry, don't leave messages, leave comments. And I'll get back to you as soon as I can on those. As always, this is Indie Comics Jones from the Temple of Tomes bidding you adieu.